It's important that people realize when you sit down to write a script, every word matters, every sentence matters, every plot point and every object you add, much like Chekhov's gun, has to pay out. It has to mean something, and everything flows because while it seems like a movie is a very, very long piece of media, and while it seems when you're writing a screenplay like you've got all the time in the world and not enough space to fill it, at the end you are trying to cram as much exposition, dialogue, and characterization as you can into what ultimately is a very, very brief document. At about 90 pages or 90 minutes, a script is far shorter than a novella or a book. You don't have the weeks and years and seasons that you do on a TV show. And so a movie has to be self-contained and it has to be tight, it has to flow, otherwise we as the audience get bored. Unfortunately, this is not the end of the process. When you're finally editing a movie down, you might find that some scenes run long, some don't work the way that you would hope, some effects don't work the way that you'd hoped, but sometimes you cut something very important. And we might do an entire series out of this, but for today at least, we're just talking about aliens.
I don't know what to say.
See, the story of aliens to me is ingrained from the first time I saw the film. A 9, 10-year-old whose parents had purchased the brand new DVD. Those things were pretty popular back in the day. And they watched the director's cut, and of course they let their 9, 10-year-old watch it, which explains so much about me. The thing is, watching that movie, the story that I remember has one vivid scene, and it's a scene that changes the entire context of the movie and the context of Ripley's character. Now, I don't want to hear anything about spoilers. The film's been out for about 30 years, and if you haven't seen Aliens, well, stop watching this and go do it right now. Maybe if you've even seen it and you just want to watch it again, but finish our video first. If you haven't seen Aliens and you don't really care, well, here's the basic plot of Aliens. There are aliens. More importantly, Sigourney Weaver travels to this planet with a group of colonial marines with Michael Biehn, Bill Paxton, and a whole host of other great character actors to figure out what happened to this colony of terraformers and whether or not the alien that she had met in the first film, the Ridley Scott classic Alien, may be responsible for this horrible disappearance of hundreds and hundreds of people. When they arrive there, they quickly find that their worst fears are in fact reality and that the colonial marines are unequipped to deal with the alien infestation and threat. Fortunately, Sigourney Weaver is able to help several of the group to potentially survive, and as they explore the compound and the sort of alien village, they find themselves a survivor, a little girl named Newt, who to this day is the exact reason that I fucking hate kids in sci-fi and horror films. Ever since Newt and Aliens, I've just really, really hated kids in horror films. It's still something that just feels like it's tacking on time to the movie. Feels like it's dragging things out and creating unnecessary drama. But there's one reason why I think that it's perfectly reasonable understanding the character. Unfortunately, it's a reason that if you only saw the theatrical cut, you've never heard of before. In this scene, which lasts about a minute and a half, Sigourney Weaver continues to ask Paul Reiser for information about the daughter she left behind before the events of Alien. After some obfuscation, Paul Reiser finally admits to her, "We have found information, and, well, it's been 80 years. She lived a full life, and your daughter is dead." No kids, no grandkids. Her only familial tie on this entire planet, in this entire universe, is dead. And for her, this occurred in the blink of an eye. Understanding this, understanding the loss that Ripley now has felt, and understanding that she is a mother whose child has been taken away from her, it suddenly makes so much more sense why she cares if Newt lives or dies. It makes so much more sense why she will travel into the hive of an alien queen to rescue this small, annoying child. And now you can ask several questions about why a scene is cut. Was it too graphic? Was it unnecessary? Does it reveal information perhaps we didn't want? And we see things all the time like alternate endings or different scenes shot to elicit different dialogue. But in this case, it's a pretty straightforward scene that is necessary to understanding the character. Now, what many people don't realize is that in the 1980s, most films really couldn't go over 2.5 hours or they might not get distribution, so it sort of makes sense why they cut so much out of Aliens. But I had to sit through about 3 minutes of her playing with her fucking cat from the first movie. I think they could have found some time. The good news is now, people like myself have been raised with the director's cut, or at least versions of the film on TV and HBO that seem to opt to include that sequence. But it's an interesting thing to keep in mind when we look at why a character and their motivations make sense or don't. What little moments may have been captured or thought about or written or even filmed and left out on the cutting room floor. Thankfully, however, it is the only example in the Alien franchise where we lose something incredibly important about a character or the mythos or the universe because of some editing decision that really lost something important. So that is good, at least. Except that it's actually not true. You know the alien, the egg, at least, on the cover of Alien, you know, with the face huggers, the kind of the centerpiece of the entire universe? Well, there's something that was cut from Alien that is probably interesting for you to know. Remember Tom Skerritt's character, Dallas? That's right, the guy with the beard. In the theatrical cut, you do see him get attacked and then he vanishes. That's fine, the alien certainly killed him. I don't know what else we could do with that. Except Ridley Scott did, and he filmed a sequence at which Ripley is looking through this ship for these surviving members of the crew, or the members of the crew who have gone missing at the very least, and stumbles upon a room in which she finds them entombed in this kind of alien jelly that is beginning to take over the entire ship like an infection. She sees most of her crewmates, some dead, some seemingly mummified, and she sees Dallas. As Dallas is sitting there half clinging to life, she asks what she can do to help him, and he responds, "Kill me." It's more like a muttering death rattle kind of way he delivers the line. I can't do it. But what you notice in that sequence is that the people who have been taken by the alien, they're not just killed off, they're not just torn to shreds. They begin to turn them into one of the eggs. Probably something that adds a little bit of understanding to the entire series. But what do I know? That's the power of the cutting room floor.